Today is a very crappy and uncomfortable day for fans of Toru Furuya, fans of One Piece, Gundam, Detective Conan, you name it, he's probably been a part of it. But yes, he has recently posted an apology and pretty much confirms a lot of information that is coming out from a tabloid regarding his affair with a fan for many, many years, and a lot of other things, including assault and possibly forcing himself upon her, forcing an abortion, all that kind of stuff. Now, this isn't something that I normally cover. If you guys have been watching me for a while, you're like, what the hell is this video? And unfortunately, this stuff happens a lot. As much as we want to put people on pedestals, and actors and voice actresses and stars on pedestals, they're human, and at the same time, some of them are the worst people. And this definitely is kind of leaning towards that later area of just the absolute worst, despite the fact that we love the works they've done. But I think it wasn't until I actually looked into this more and found the actual interview with the person involved, which we'll call Eiko, this fan, when she actually quoted saying, "Whenever I see innocent children on the street, I'm reminded of that day. It pains me to see him surrounded by fans, acting as if nothing happened. I decided to come forward in hopes that he never repeats the same mistake." And that was kind of the thing that sort of tipped me over, despite the fact that I sat here for like an hour and a half wondering if I want to cover this. Because I think a lot of people have seen the statement made by Toru and his apology. Let's get into that right now. The translation of that says, "On this occasion, I, Toru Furuya, was interviewed by Shokan Bushon. I have a confession and an apology to make about a grave sin I have committed. For a long period of 4.5 years, until September of last year, I was in an adulterous relationship with a female fan. I was attracted to her unwavering support and frivolously took the initiative to contact her. During that relationship, there was one instance where we got in an argument and I ended up raising my hand to her. This was the lowest possible act, both as an adult and a human being. I also committed the unforgivable act of forcing her to get an abortion. I am truly, truly sorry for the deep physical and emotional wounds I caused her. To the fans who have supported me for many years, I cannot apologize enough for betraying your trust, disappointing you, hurting you, and tarnishing my image. I have also betrayed the trust of all those who are associated with me and caused them in great trouble. I am determined to spend the rest of my life sincerely atoning for my actions. I am prepared to accept my punishment. I am truly sorry. Toru Furuya." And yes, I think initially reading this, you're like, okay, that's pointing out at least two things that are very uncomfortable. I think there's like 3 different issues here, actually 4 different issues here. The first aspect is sort of the manipulation that can come from somebody that you adore. As a fan of somebody, it's much easier for that thing that you adore, that thing that you almost worship in a lot of ways, to easily manipulate you. Not to say that that's her fault. None of this is really her fault in my eyes, but there is an aspect here that she is sort of being manipulated by him, and it's much more easy to be done that way. And that's really what I was saying earlier, where I think this is sort of a warning call for a lot of people. This is a story that she's wanting to tell, and I think that's part of it, how he was able to pull that off and in the end discard her. And I think people need to be aware of this kind of stuff. And of course, the other things being adultery, the assault, and yes, forcing her to have the abortion itself, which I think are all things that kind of just keep adding up. But I think a lot of people are seeing the apology, but they're not seeing the full story. And I ended up finding a translation of the article done by ZionicRepublic.net, which I thought was both very disturbing and at the same time does tell her story that I think a lot of people aren't getting. Now, I want to put a warning beforehand here that this is some very graphical stuff, and it was partly why I wasn't really sure if I wanted to cover it. So be warned, what we're going to get into here is very graphic. Not extremely graphic, but it is telling the story that I think is very uncomfortable for a lot of people. Our first quote we have here from Eiko, like I said, Eiko is going to be the fan that he was in the relationship with. It says, "Whenever I see innocent children on the street, I'm reminded of that day. It pains me to see him surrounded by fans, acting as if nothing happened. I decided to come forward in hopes that he never repeats the same mistake." Eiko confesses she had been in a long-term affair with voice actor Toru Furuya, 70 years old, until last year. "As an anime fan, I knew Furuya's name, but I became a fan after hearing the voice of Toru Amuro in the 2016 film Detective Conan: The Darkest Nightmare. Around 2017, she participated in an event where Furuya interacted closely with fans. It involved hugging, cuddling, and other close interactions, which made me fall for him even harder. Before I knew it, I had gone to see Zero, the Enforcer, 45 times, moved to tears by his performance." Now, this is one of those situations where I don't necessarily think the idea of an actor or whatever getting close and cuddly with their fans. I think if they are consenting adults, I think this is perfectly fine. Yeah, you can make an argument for, you know, a voice actor or voice actress that gets a little bit too handsy-on with anybody that is underage. But I think for somebody that is of age, again, at this moment right here, we're talking about her being in her 30s, I think this is perfectly fine. But there's the other side of this where, again, this starts to get into that realm of kind of creating more and more that tension, that closeness of the fans with the actual actor, actress. This is where I sort of start to throw up my warning signals for people that this stuff starts to get dangerous for people as fans. You have to almost create that barrier that you have with who you're a fan of. For days, her interactions with Toru Furuya were limited to one-sided actions of sending fan letters and gifts to his agency. That all changed on New Year's Day 2019 when a text message came from an unknown number. At first, I thought it might be a scam, but as we exchanged messages, I realized it was really him. I couldn't believe it, she says. I was nervous, but I managed to strike up conversation about his various works. He came across as a true gentleman. So essentially, it went from basically sending that information, those gifts and whatnot to him. I'm guessing she put her number in one of the gifts, and he contacted her through that number. And by contacting her, they decided to meet up. And this is where things get extremely uncomfortable. So again, full-on warning here. This is not pleasant. After their meal, they found themselves at a karaoke booth where Furuya enchanting voice filled the air with Maria Takeuchi's Eki. The following March, Furuya was staying at a hotel in Kochi City for an anime and manga related event. Eiko, who had come to the city to attend the events as a general audience member, was invited to Furuya's hotel room. Again, this is where things get a little bit inappropriate. And again, this is where I say this is bad. And again, I understand from her perspective, she adores this guy. She idolizes him. He's been a gentleman up until this point, and at this point, she is welcoming him into his hotel room, and she thinks, oh, great, that's great. Now, again, this is a tabloid. It probably has cut some context here, and keep that stuff in mind. This is her side of the story given to this tabloid, and a lot of these tabloids like to drum up this stuff as if like it's a drama. So there may be some context missing here. She might actually be in love with him at this point. I mean, she's already addressed the idea that she's been enchanted by him. So this does technically still play into that realm of they're still right at this point two consenting adults, but there may be some lost context here, but this does look extremely nasty. The moment I stepped into the room, he pushed me onto the bed with a force I hadn't expected. A force I hadn't expected. It does technically imply the idea that she was expecting something at least. I don't know. Again, I'm wondering if at this point she was expecting that she was going to be sleeping with him. By going to his hotel room, she may have been expecting that. There was no build-up, no romance. It was abrupt. As he grew more and more aroused, he tried to enter me without protection. I pleaded, wait, please. But he brushed it off, saying, it's okay, she recounts. She tried to stop him again, but he explained, I can't produce. My wife and I tried fertilizing treatments for about 7 years. Even if I finished inside, there's absolutely no chance he'll get pregnant. Again, it implies here that she was accepting this, because I think this is the part where a lot of people are kind of confused as if this was a forced encounter, or if she was okay with this, but she wanted him to use protection. Again, he pushed her, forced her on there, and then started talking about protection. If she was being forced upon you, the assumption there is that she would be asking for him to use protection. So I just want to give the context here that there's a lot of people reporting that this is the R word, but there's also a lot of signs here. This is a tabloid. This is only her side of the story, and it is implying that she was wanting him to use protection because she was afraid of getting pregnant. So keep that in mind as we go through this, but it is technically, either way, it's still unpleasant because, again, he does have a wife and children, or a child. Even though he said that, I was still anxious about getting pregnant. But he was my idol. Someone I admire deeply. Ouch. The thought that he might be lying never crossed my mind. She trusted him. In the end, he had unprotected sex with her that night, she admits. From that one passionate encounter, their relationship intensified at a dizzying pace. Furuya made numerous visits to her home, squeezing in time between his hectic schedule. A constant source of tension between them was an undeniable fact that he was married. These are the text messages, by the way. I just desperately want to be with you. but I don't think it's possible. I'm sorry. I'll have to give up the roles I'm currently playing. It would cause problems for so many people. I love you, Eiko, and I don't want to break up, but you probably can't forgive me. So this is where that problem comes that, okay, why wouldn't he just have a divorce and get married with her? And his problem here is his job and his fans and everything that he's built up and everybody that's a part of his business, basically. So it seems like there is a struggle happening here. But again, a lot of this could be manipulation. Furuya, juggling his roles as a voice actor, family man, and her lover, often sent her skillfully crafted line messages. That's from the article, by the way. She said, age difference be damned. I had fallen head over heels for him as a man, but he always maintained that he can't get divorced. September 2020 marked the turning point when the incident occurred at Furuya's villa in the Kanto region. She said that day too, we got in a heated argument about our relationship, and then he snapped. Enough is enough, you be, he said. In a fit of rage, Furuya allegedly struck her face several times. Blood gushed out from her nose, staining the futon where they had lain moments before. I scrambled for my phone, she said, and locked myself in the bathroom, frantically dialing 110, which is their police, basically. She said, help me, please. Her desperate screams filled the air. The next instant, Furuya forced open the bathroom door, snatched her phone, and powered it off. Furuya refused to return the phone, leaving Eiko no choice but to flee the villa. He chased after her, dropping to his knees and begging for forgiveness. I am so sorry. Upon hearing his apologies, the two retreated back to the villa. However, when Eiko returned her phone, she found several missed calls from the local police. This is one of those unfortunate things, that manipulation. It's like, he struck her and everything, and then she still goes back. And again, she was madly in love with him. So it technically makes sense that this is something where she trusted him. He's very charming. And she decided to turn around and go back to him. Again, this is somebody that she's in love with. She doesn't want to leave. And now here's an unfortunate thing. In the end, 4 or 5 police officers showed up to the villa. I was the one questioned at the entrance, while Furuya hid in the back room the entire time. Later, Eiko confirmed Furuya over the phone about his violent outburst. Eiko, hitting me was wrong, wasn't it? Furuya, I'll be honest, I completely lost my temper. Eiko, and in the face at that. Furuya, of course. I feel just awful about that. I do hate the fact that the police officers, despite the fact that, I mean, she may have cleaned up herself beforehand, but not doing more there, I guess, is the unfortunate thing. Despite the turbulent episodes, their relationship persisted. Furuya even sought Eiko's guidance for an apparel brand he was developing. Moreover, he wielded his ultimate weapon without restraint. He professed his love to Eiko using voices of beloved characters, including Toru Amuro, the very role that brought them together, saying, "You are my lover." He whispered a variation of Amuro's iconic lines, "My lover in this country," replaced "this country" with her name, his voice dripping with affection. The greatest challenge to the relationship emerged in 2021 when Eiko discovered she was pregnant. Now here's where it gets like extremely uncomfortable for me personally, is the idea that yes, we've gone through him committing adultery. We've gone through him having this affair with somebody without telling his wife. We've gone through all this manipulation that he is doing using the fact that she adores him. But now we're getting into the realm of literally forcing her to have to end the life of her child. And this personally hurts me a lot, which again, he has confirmed. Eiko tearfully recalls that time. It was my first pregnancy, yet he casually sent a line message saying, "I'm sorry, I should have been more careful." When I called him, the first words come out of his mouth were, "I want you to get an abortion." I wanted him to consider my feelings first. No matter how much we discussed it, he stubbornly insisted, "I want you to abort it." Furuya's words tore Eiko's heart to shreds. "Is it really mine?" he asked. "That can't be yet called a life." Eiko yielded to Furuya's wishes and chose to terminate the pregnancy. However, Furuya allegedly refused to sign the consent form required by the hospital. When he refused to sign it, he justified it by saying, "It's so I can continue my relationship with you." I persuaded him and had him sign the memorandum after the surgery, separate from the one submitted to the hospital beforehand, Eiko said. Following the abortion, a period of radio silence ensued, but eventually they rekindled their affair. They went to see Conan and One Piece movies that Furuya appeared in, and even went on a pilgrimage visiting locations from the works. The breakup came abruptly last September at an airport as they returned from an event in Hokkaido where Furuya had performed, accompanied by Eiko. She said, "Once again, we got into a heated argument about our future. Both of our tempers flared, even with other passengers around. He was angrier than I'd ever seen him. He brought up the abortion saying, 'I signed the consent form, didn't I? And you knew I was married when you got involved with me.' I couldn't help but wonder if those were his true feelings. I was overwhelmed with a sense of frustration and betrayal," she recalls. Then Furuya said, It's well and truly over now, and left. She said, I haven't directly contacted him since then. Looking back, he had such cruel things to say to me on countless occasions. Things like, I haven't been intimate with my wife in decades, so being with you isn't cheating. He did terrible things, but there was also moments of genuine happiness. Even now, my feelings are tangled mess, Eiko said. This is when the actual article gets into them contacting Furuya to verify the information, and they agreed to meet. At a room at his designated agency, a somber Furuya awaited them. His eyes were red and swollen, and he seemed to be fighting back tears. They sort of imply this later on, but yes, it's technically probably because he just got off the phone with his wife and his daughter, contacting them to basically let them know before this gets out. They asked, is it true that you were in an affair with Eiko for 4.5 years? He said, yes, it's true. There's no denying it. There's a 37-year-old gap between the two of them, same age as your daughter. It was completely caught. Yeah, he was caught in the idea of being attracted, being with a young, attractive woman. This is probably, the fact that there's an age gap is probably a nothing thing in this entire situation. Again, it's a lot to do with for me, the adultery and the pregnancy and the striking, that kind of stuff. Did you have genuine feelings for her? He said, of course I did. They asked, did you really use the voice of Amuro to appeal to a fan? This, I think, is dumb, but at the same time, there is the aspect of a manipulation there. And yes, technically, you probably can get a lot of trouble for it. He said, it may have happened. My memory isn't what it used to be. So if she says it happened, it likely did. I deeply regret it. It was an act to tarnish the character, and I'm truly sorry for that. Now, I do see them kind of seeing this a lot more important in that industry, especially, but again, I think it's more annoying because it is a manipulation tactic that he could have been using on her. In March 2019, during your first intimate encounter, did you use protection? Honestly, I don't remember. I apologize for that. Did you really think there would be no consequences without protections? Years ago, I got checked in the hospital. They said no possibility of pregnancy through normal intercourse. Is it true that you were violent towards her in the villa? He says it's true, but it wasn't with a fist. It was with an open hand. I hit her 2 or 3 times during our fight. She started saying she was going to leave. I panicked. I lost control and lashed out. He said he took her phone. Don't really care about that. Were you ever hit by her? He said no, she never did hit him. In March 2021, when she became pregnant, did you say you wanted her to get an abortion? Yes, that's true. Did you also ask, is it really mine? I may have said something to that effect. I had my doubts, but I still accompanied her to the hospital and paid for the procedure and a form of compensation. You also said that can't be even called a life yet. She was about 5 weeks along at the time, and that was my thinking back then. But I said it intending to console her, as she was struggling with the situation. So he's basically saying that he told her that it can't even be called life yet because she was struggling with the idea of even aborting it. And that's the very tragic thing about this, is that she wanted to have that child. It was her child. And a child with the one that she loved. She loved this guy. And now he's telling her to abort it. And what he's basically doing is trying to ease her mind by saying, it's not even a life yet, don't worry about it, kind of thing. Were you trying to avoid taking responsibility? No, I recognize it was my responsibility. But you did. By doing that, you're avoiding taking responsibility. He initially refused the consent with the abortion procedure. I was told a consent form wasn't actually necessary. After she had the abortion, I signed and stamped the memorandum, separate from the official form. Did you ever consider marrying her? I always made it clear to her that it was absolutely out of the question. I am turning 71 and will likely need care myself soon. I knew marrying her would never lead her to happiness. That is probably the dumbest reply I can ever see to that question. Did you ever consider marrying the woman that you're kind of just dragging around? Yeah, I can see the idea that she even mentioned the idea that they, I don't know, he could have been keeping it very clear to her, the idea that this is just my mistress, basically. We'll never be in an actual relationship. But that still doesn't okay the idea that, oh, well, yeah, I'm doing this for her. She will never be happy if she sticks with me. I was telling her to keep her distance. That is bullcrap. Did sex play a big role in your relationship? Yes, being with her made me feel like I was still a man, that I still had it in me. Does your family know about the affair? I told them everything before this interview. It says in parentheses, so they could have gotten a clarification of that afterwards, but before this interview, they're adding that in there, or he may have just side-spoke it before this interview. My wife said I was foolish and short-sighted, and that we'll have to live with this shame. It seems that she told our daughter, who apparently said, I'm on dad's side. I hate that they bring the daughter's point of view into this whole situation, because I've already seen some people say that she should go to jail too, and it's like, of course this girl's going to support her dad. Is everything you said here the truth? Yes, without a doubt. I'm completely at fault, and resorting to violence was despicable. The lowest thing a person can do. I'm genuinely sorry. I'm ready to accept any repercussions that may come my way, even if it means losing everything because of this. And that's the article. Like I said, it's very uncomfortable. It's very upsetting, but at the same time, I did want to cover it just because, even though, again, this is something that is just completely outside of something that I like to. I don't like this kind of stuff. I don't like getting into this stuff. I like staying positive and getting into good stuff. But again, like I said earlier, with that initial statement that she made, I almost felt like it was necessary to kind of talk about this, because this is somebody that really felt like she was in a relationship, and there was a little bit of manipulation that was happening here. It gives a clear perspective of somebody who can be, unfortunately, manipulated by somebody that they look up to so much. They trust them, and in the end, it turns something that is very devastating for her, and at the same time, very devastating for people that I think trusted this guy as that he was this great person that has done so many great works they really, really adore. But anyhow, I just want to get this full context out here for you guys. Hopefully this full interview is vetted out. I vetted out most of this based on the snippets they put on their actual official website. So I'm pretty sure this whole thing is the words. But again, he pretty much confirms everything in his post. So yeah, take that all with a grain of salt. Anyways, let me know down in the comments down below what you think of this whole situation, and hit that like button if you like this video. And until next time, y'all take care.